Okay, so it's secondary storage to the CPU. It's permanent. Permanent means it doesn't go away when the power goes off. It doesn't mean it can't ever be deleted. It doesn't mean in the absolute term permanent usually means forever. It's not forever storage, right? You can delete it. The hard drive could go bad. Your friend can delete it, but in general, it's permanent until it's deleted. Okay, so what is held on the hard drive that's so important? What's the most important thing on our hard drive? Usually, what is the most important, largest program
BIOS.
on our hard drive? Where's BIOS at?
I don't know. I'm tired.
CMOS-ROM.
I'm tired.
Okay, what's in it? Where's it? What's the big one? The big O. The
Operating system.
operating system. Okay, because if there's no operating system, BIOS has nothing to hand off to give control of the computer. Okay, so the biggest, most important program on our hard drive is our OS. What else is on our hard drive? So that's all we have. We just have Windows. We start up a computer with Windows. Okay, I'm on Windows 7. Let's go home. Okay, we get our OS. Gives us the ability to interact with our When you open up Windows 7, no, I'm actually itching. When we open up Windows 7, what's on our desktop? Lots of programs. Okay, so our programs are on our hard drive. Okay, so we boot up our computer, we get to our operating system, which is the most important thing on our hard drive, because without it we wouldn't be able to interact with our hardware. Once we get on our operating system and our GUI, our graphical user interface, then we can use our programs, which lets us save lots of data. Okay, so then we we open up Microsoft Windows to open up Microsoft Word to save our research paper. Okay, so on our hard drive we have our operating system, we have lots of programs, and we have lots of data stored on there. Okay, you guys store your data on a hard drive. What hard drive is that? Are you supposed to save it? Your H drive, which is a hard drive on a server on trail floor in a closet. Okay, but it's still saving it to a hard drive. Okay, when we save to the cloud, we're just saving to a hard drive someplace else. That doesn't mean that it's not saved. So it's still saved to a hard drive. Your data is maybe on your H drive. It's still a hard drive. Okay. This hard drive, because it loads the operating system, because it loads the program, and because it's where we save our data, is immensely important. If it's a slow hard drive, we're going to have a slow computer. It's going to load the OS slow. Okay? It's going to make Windows open up slow. It's going to make Office open up slow. It's not going to impact our data as much, because usually our data is small. It's these things that get impacted by old, slow, junky hard drives. The data itself isn't generally what gets impacted that much. Okay? So maybe it takes forever for our video game to load, but then once we're running it, the save files are little tiny things. Okay? So those are the things that are saved on it. So the purpose of the hard drive is to hold our stuff. Okay? And that stuff is our operating system, our programs, and our data. Okay, that's the primary purpose of it, and without that running well, we're in trouble. When the hard drive goes bad, we're in trouble. If we run out of hard drive space, we can't add any more computers or any more programs. Okay, so we need hard drive space. And I have teachers say that, or staff members, or people say, hey, I can't load this program, I'm out of memory. Are you out of memory when you can't load a program? No, you're out of hard drive space. Remember, it has nothing to do with whether I can load the program. You can probably load any program you want to on a big enough hard drive. It may not run if you don't have enough. Okay? So, it's where we store our stuff. It's important. Okay? So, that's objective number 1. Objective number 2 is to understand. These are the first two. We get harder on the objectives as we go. Okay? The next one is to understand both the physical size and capacity of hard drives. Okay? Now, hard drives have different physical sizes for laptops and for desktops. Desktop hard drives are 3.3 3.5 inches. It's the physical size. This is 3.5 inches wide. So when you're shopping for your hard drive, you need to make sure you're under the 3.5 inch hard drives. Because laptop ones, are not 3.5 inches. Okay? And this will not fit in the bay that this goes into, because we have to obviously screw it into our computer correctly, okay? So they're 3.5 inches. There is no designated length or height. You can see these different hard drives are different heights. In all cases, the screws line up for mounting, and there are mounting screws on the bottom and on the sides, okay? But they're 3.5 inches wide, and a laptop drive is 2.5 inches wide, which is not to say that you can't put a laptop drive in a desktop. Here's a mounting case that mounts a laptop drive to make it fit into a desktop computer, okay? But laptop drives don't run as fast as desktop drives. You don't want to put a laptop drive in a desktop drive if you have a choice. This is from a test that we did, running a fast laptop drive instead of a slow desktop drive. It actually ran pretty good. Okay? There's also another reason to have an adapter, and this is a solid state drive, which actually we're going to talk about tomorrow, not today. We won't have time to today. There's no moving parts in this. It's all memory. They only make solid state drives in one size. It's 2.5. So it came with this adapter, so you could put it in a desktop. Okay, that's the one time where 2.5 is all you're going to find. It's a solid state. But on regular drives, 2.5 is for laptops, 3.5 is for desktops. Okay? Questions? That's easy. We got that? How big is a laptop drive? How big is a desktop drive?
3.5.
How big is a server drive? It's 3.5. It's the same as a desktop. Okay, just so you know. Okay, so server drives and desktops, same thing, because it's not a laptop. Although you could make a laptop into a server. Anyway. Okay, so the other thing I said as far as sizes, not just physical size, that we also have capacities. So hard drives come in a variety of different sizes, because there's two sizes. We got the physical, we already got that out of the way. It's either 3.5 inches or 2.5 inches. Okay, this is primarily for laptops. This is for desktops and servers. Okay, and then we've got capacities. And when I say capacity, it's how capacity is how much it holds. Okay? And when we talk capacity, we're talking about, throwing off my slides, we're talking about gigabytes of storage. Okay? First, drives were small. Okay? We used to just have 40 gigabyte drives because that used to be as big as you could connect up with a computer. Okay? Now we're up to 4 terabyte drives, which is equal to 4,000 gigabytes of storage. So they come in huge ranges. This one right here, the solid state drive, because they're expensive, this has only got 32 gig of storage. Okay, it's almost the smallest one you can get for solid state. But we put them in the student laptop so they ran really fast, because you shouldn't be saving your stuff on it anyway, right? You're supposed to be saving it on your H drive. On the other hand, this server drive right here holds 3,000 gigabytes of storage. Okay? So this server drive is a 3 terabyte drive. Okay? It's 300 times bigger than this. Okay? So capacity refers to how much stuff I can store on it. And the higher the capacity, the more they cost. But these drives, traditional drives, have come down immensely in price. 3 terabytes is only like $200. Okay, now I wouldn't pay $200 for a drive for my computer at home because I can get one for $50 that's 1 or a half or 3/4 terabyte that will hold everything I need, because you are not going to have 3 terabytes of stuff in your computer. I hope. Okay, that would be hard to do. Okay, so when we're talking about capacity, we're talking about sizes, and we're talking about how much they hold. I keep hitting forward. Okay, so different things hold different amounts of space, and the problem is when we talk about capacity is that Windows keeps getting bigger. Used to be a 40 gig drive would hold Windows, and I mean when I first got here, the hard drives on our Windows machines, on all the teacher machines, were these 13 gig hard drives. 13 gig. You can't even get Windows 7 to install in 13 gig. Okay? So the operating system keeps getting bigger, which keeps forcing us to get bigger hard drives to hold all of our stuff. Because they're faster, so they can do more, so we can make them bigger, so we need more, and so they get faster and they keep growing and growing. How much do you need is a subject of an article that I'm going to have you guys read next week. Okay? When we're not here. But in general, in your home PC, you could get away with anywhere between 100 to 300 gigabytes happily on your home PC or your laptop. Okay? That's perfectly fine. Unless you're storing all kinds of movies and photos. You have huge games. If you're a gamer, I'm going to say you need between 500 and 1 terabyte. If you're a gamer. Or a video person, okay? I will tell you that every single video I have at my house, I rip to a file and it's shared to my smart TV so that my kids don't have to go and pull out DVDs all the time. They can just go like this and go to the video directory and watch a movie. Okay, it makes the DVDs last forever, right? Because I can just put them in a shelf and I don't have to worry about rebuying them. Okay, and if you're a gamer, some of those games are huge. Are you a gamer at all, Corey? Okay, what games do you play?
Computer?
Yeah.
Diablo and World of Warcraft.
Okay.
Well, it used to be.
I don't know how big a World of Warcraft is, and I don't really know about Diablo, but I know Skyrim is a 13 gigabyte download. It takes like 4 hours to download it, to install it on your PC, so you can't have this little tiny. I mean, you could fit it on a home PC as long as that's the only game you're playing. Okay? So that's just an idea of the sizes we're looking at. So if you got a home PC and you got a 300 gig, and the prices have come down so much, it's amazing. I mean, I know you guys didn't shop for hard drives, but it used to be we paid a ton for a decent sized hard drive, and now if I go and look at hard drives, and by the way, when we look here, okay, I'm on Newegg. I obviously want it to be internal. Don't buy us an external hard drive for your computer when you do your project. Okay, so I look at internal hard drives, and then I can say I want desktop hard drives. See, it's desktop and laptop here. So I want desktop drives, and now look at my capacity choices: 500 gig to a terabyte. I don't even see one that says oh, there's under 500 gig. Okay, so there's only a few. Look, 100 gig. There's only one drive they even have that small. 300 or 120. You can look at all these. There aren't that many that are that small. Most of them, you can see the numbers get bigger as we get bigger. So I'm going to go and say 300 gig drives. Why did I just lose that? I just wanted to click the one. There we go. So I'm going to look at just 300 gig drives since there are 60 of those, and then I'm going to reverse sort by price. Well, that's really expensive. Look at that. So if I want this 300 gig drive, it's $167. I'm going to go back and just look at drives in general, and I'm going to say that that is really expensive for a small drive. Because I'll bet you that if I do the 500 to a terabyte, look at that. I just went up in size and way down in price. So I can get I can get a 500 gigabyte drive for $54 or a 300 gigabyte drive for $187. Because they're not making little drives anymore. Because capacity has gotten cheap. So 500 gigabytes for $54. What's this one? 500 gigabytes for $54. 500 gigabytes for $54. 500 gigabytes for $60. Are these new? That's my next question. Are they eco-friendly, halogen-free design? Because I'm worried about halogens coming out of my. Let's go ahead and we're going to go to this Customer Choice Award winner right here. So my capacity is 500 gigabyte, and we're going to talk about some of the other relationships with speed and stuff tomorrow after we talk about how to physically connect them. Tomorrow we're going to talk about solid-state drives and speeds because that kind of goes together. Today we're talking about connections, so I'm going to go back to where we were talking about here. So that's the capacity that I'm talking about when we're talking about those kind of sizes. Okay, third objective for us today is understand how to connect them. First of all, any questions on capacity? So sizes, we're talking about the physical size, we're talking about how much data they can store, and you just saw there from that example that the cost of data has gone down and down and down and down and down. So I got to remember to talk about the speed stuff next class. Okay, so there's two different ways to connect them. We got the old way and the new way. Okay, the old way, which we're still going to talk about because we still have those in the district, but we're trying to get rid of them, is called a PATA or IDE connection, which is what this cable is right here. And the new way is called SATA. Okay? PATAs allow you on a single cable to connect two things. This goes to the motherboard, and then I got two connections right here. So I got two things for each cable. SATAs, which are far easier to do, and I can explain in about 15 seconds, are only one thing per cable. I plug this side in the motherboard and this side in the hard drive, and that's all there is to it. But they're way faster. Okay? These are many times faster than these. The first one of these was only a little bit faster, and now we're way faster. Okay, the slowest one you can get is at least 3 times faster than this connection, if not more than that. Okay. So we've got two kind of connections. We got PATA or IDE. We use that interchangeably with this cable, and then we've got SATA. In general, we're trying to get rid of all the PATA hard drives in the whole district. But every single CD-ROM that we have still connects up through a PATA cable. So we still need to talk about it, okay, because we still have both connections. So when we go to connect up a hard drive, this is an IDE or PATA connection. There are two kinds of IDE cables, okay? I've got this one out here, and I've got the other one, this one, okay? Look at these two cables. You can see the difference in the wiring. This is very coarse, and this is very fine. Okay, this one has 40 wires, and this has 80. This is slow, this is fast. Slow, fast. If I had a hard drive to hook up with, and a CD-ROM to hook up with these two cables, which one would I hook up to my hard drive? The fast one. And I'd hook up the slow one to my CD-ROM. CD-ROMs don't go any faster than this cable does. Okay? Hard drives go way faster than this cable does. Okay? What are you looking at? I need your head on my class. Okay, so we've got one part goes to the motherboard, and then we've got two connections to two other available devices when we hook them up. This goes through the speeds. They started out really slow at 8.3 megabytes per second. They got up to a maximum of 133. SATA started at 150, and then they went 300, and they went 600. Okay, and they continue to be refined and go faster and faster. Okay, so PATA drives are slow, and that's why we need to get rid of them in the district. Windows has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, So if the hard drive is slow, it takes longer and longer and longer to load, which is why we need to get rid of all the PATA drives in the district, but not the CD-ROMs. So here's a picture of the 80 conductor cable, the 40 conductor cable. Big thing is you really want to use the 80 if you can. The 40 will work fine for a CD-ROM, but if we have 80 available, use an 80, okay? If you have to use one of each, if I ask you, which I will in the quiz, which one would be better for a CD-ROM and which one would be better for a hard drive, 80 is better for the hard drive, and 40 is better for the CD-ROM if I have to make a choice between the two, okay? SATA connections, really easy. It's just the one wire going to the one plug. Now, there's two different kinds of powers that can hook up into these, okay? We've got this regular Molex connector, which is how many volts? 12, okay? It's a 12 volt Molex connector. It plugs into our hard drive, okay? When I look at, let's see if I can find, is that connector going to plug into that hard drive? No, okay? The SATA connector, the serial ATA connector for power looks like this. It's still 12 volts. And if your computer doesn't have one, this costs 99 cents. This adapter, put it in right. To change, oh, this one's coming apart on me. To change it into a SATA connector. Okay, this only goes on one way. There's a little L. See the little L? Okay, you can't put it on upside down. It won't go in. Okay, so you can just get an adapter for that. It's still 12 volts. The other thing is there are some that take either, not both. You do not plug this in and this in just because there are two plugs. Only one. This is a one or the other. This is a crossover drive that came out when the drives were just coming out, so they made it take either kind. Okay? Not both. I made that point. Not both. Not both. I still have students hook up both. Even though I say not both all the time. Not both. No, that's bad. Bad. One or the other. It'll take either one, but not both. Okay? So some drives are crossovers like that will take both kind of powers. So SATA is easy. I'm done talking about hooking up SATA. Other than the point that your hard drive or your motherboard may have many SATA connections. This one only has two. Okay? Actually a spot for 4, but they didn't put the plug in there. Okay? This one's SATA 0 and this one's SATA 2. Which one would you plug in your hard drive to? I gave you choices 0 and 2. 0. The lowest number. You always start with the lowest number, okay? So the operating system, you want to put on the lowest number. There is a 1 right there. That's one within the plug. So that's 0, 1, 2, and 3. Anyway. But yeah, I understood what you were saying. So you want to plug it into the lowest number because that's where it's going to look for the operating system first. Okay, so SATA is easy. Plug in the power, you plug in the SATA cable, and that's good. And I want to give you a little warning on this. Okay, so here's a SATA cable. It only hooks up one way. It has a little L on it as well. Okay, and we're going to do some connecting and unconnecting and installing the hard drives on Friday, hopefully. Okay, so that plugs in like that. It just pulls right off. But see, there's nothing special about that connector. But if you get a connector like this that has a little silver tab on it, and you plug it in, it doesn't come out. That's a lock. I've had people break motherboards before because they're going trying to get the cable out when all they had to do is squeeze the little silver thing to take it out. So don't just yank on a motherboard from the SATA cable. They aren't all easy pulls like that one. Some of them have these on both sides, okay? Which means you have to, I mean, it snaps in really easy, but it's so it doesn't accidentally come unplugged. So you just squeeze it before you pull it off, okay? Other than that, SATA's easy, okay? PATA is not as easy. Here's the connectors, by the way. There's the SATA connectors. The smaller one is the data. Larger one is the power. Here's the PATA. 40-pin cable goes in there, or 80-pin cable. There's still only 40 pins, but it's 80 wire or 40 wire cable. Molex power goes here. And here's what's different about the PATA drive, okay, we have these jumpers. And they are the bane of many students' final exam. Okay? There's a relationship that exists that only exists for PATA drives, because on this there's only one thing. Okay? There's only one drive hooked up to it. So that drive's the only thing going through that cable. Nothing else. On this there's two. So in order for two things to go through the same data cable, there has to be a relationship so it knows whose data is whose. Okay? Kind of like labeling. When the data gets to the end, the motherboard needs to know where the data came from. Okay? That relationship is called the master-slave relationship. Okay? So on a PATA cable, there is a master device and a slave device. Okay? This is two different cables. There's a primary channel on this motherboard and a secondary. There's a master and a slave and a master and a slave. So if I have two different things plugged into here, when the information gets to the motherboard, it needs to know whose it is. So one of these things plugged into here is the master, and one of them plugged in is the slave. And how does the motherboard know? And that's what the jumper settings are for. Okay? I have to, with the jumpers, tell the motherboard what's what. Okay? And this is what jumpers look like. They're just pins. Okay? So when I look at the back of this motherboard, I have these sets of pins right here. Okay? And I move this jumper, I just got my fingernails, so it's hard to do, to different locations to tell it whether it's master or whether it's slave. Okay? That's all the jumper is for, is so that when I plug in this cable and the data comes from it, the motherboard knows whether it's coming from the master device or the slave device. Okay? That's what the jumpers are for. They only have to be set one time. As soon as they're set, unless you change the configuration of your computer, they're good forever. Okay? But they have to be set right. If I set both these things as masters, they all screw up and generally don't work. If I set them both as slave, the data's all screwed up and it doesn't work. One has to be the boss, and one has to be the tertiary device, the not boss. Okay? So that's what the master-slave relationship is. There are actually 4 ways to set jumpers. Okay? 4 ways to set jumpers. First of all is the master, which usually is abbreviated MA on some motherboards. Okay? Or I mean on some hard drives. There's the slave, which is abbreviated SL. Now really, those are the only 2 things. But there's 2 other ways to say those same things. Okay? One is cable select, which is CS. And there's single, which there's no marking for. Okay? Now all of these refer to this. If you set something up as single, you're saying it's master and there's nothing else. Okay? You got me? So if Corey's got this in his computer, and if it has a single setting, there's nothing else plugged into this drive, it's saying, I'm master, nobody else is here to look at. Okay, so single is still setting as master. Okay? Cable select says, one of us is master and one of us is slave, just look at the cable and you'll know who's who. What does that mean? The end thing, whatever's plugged into the end is master, whatever's plugged into the middle is slave. In fact, on this cable, it says 1 and 2, meaning that guy is number 1 and this guy is number 2. And if you use cable select settings, every single, let's see if I can find another one, longer, better one in here. Every single one of them, let's see if this one says on here. There we go. Like, it says HD1 or HD2 here. The end one is master if you use cable select. Now, what I'm talking about, when I look at, and by the way, the reason we're talking about this setup is because it exists on every single CD-ROM in the district. Okay. So if I look at this CD-ROM right back here, it says CS, and there's an arrow up there that says cable select, SL, and it says slave, and MA says master. So right now this is set up as master. Okay? So that means this is the master device on this cable. If I set it up as, let me grab my cable that I just had. Okay? So if I have this set up right here, it's master, because it says it's master. Okay? If I move the pin over, if I can get it out, I can't do it. That's what I get for cutting my fingernail right before class. Okay, if I go and move this over to cable select, and it's right here, what is it? It's still master. Okay? If it's on this end cable and it's on master or cable select, it's still master. Okay? Because really what I'm doing is I'm setting this jumper to send the right signal to the motherboard. Okay? If I have it right here now, and it's on cable select, what is it? It's what? It's slave. If it's on cable select and I have it in the middle of the cable, it's slave. Okay, you get it? Cable select says the cable plug-in determines what I am. So if it's plugged in here, it's master. If it's plugged in there, it's slave because it's on cable select. Okay? So if I put it on slave, there we go. If I put it on slave and I plug it in on the end, what is it? What? It's slave. Okay? If I say it's slave no matter where it's plugged in at. Okay? Do you get the understanding there between slave, master, and cable select? Okay? So if I say master, it's master no matter where it's plugged in. If I say slave, it's slave no matter where it's plugged in. If I say cable select, it's wherever it's plugged into the cable. Okay? So only one thing now. These are easy. CD-ROMs are always the same. There's only 3 places to put jumpers. They're always marked. Sometimes they're marked underneath, by the way. Sometimes they're right there, sometimes they're underneath. Hard drives are not that easy, okay? So, I give you this hard drive, read the diagram on the top there, and tell me how I set up the jumpers on that one. By the way, single does not exist for CD-ROMs. That only exists for hard drives, okay? So, when I look at the hard drive, it may have a nice, easy diagram on the top of the hard drive like this one does. Right there it says master, cable select enable, or slave. Now where do I put the jumper for slave? What? It says what? Where do I, tell me where I put it. Okay, first of all, those are totally different drives, and the jumper settings are totally different. You have to read the drive. So it says on that one, Corey, just so we're together, we're going to do this one together first, and then we'll do yours, okay? So it says on this one has 4 sets of pins, and it says the first spot right here is master. So if I put the pin over like that, it makes this drive master, okay? And then it says the next spot, I'll just use the other side. Okay, it says the next spot is cable select. Okay, so this is master. This is cable select. And then on top, what does it say over top? Read it. What does it say over the... No jumper equals slave. Okay, in other words, if I don't have any jumper on there at all, it's the slave. That's the only 3 settings for this particular hard drive. Okay, so I put the jumper there for master. I put the master there for cable select. What would I do with the jumper? Yeah, not what I wanted. What would I do for the jumper if it was slave?
Take it out.
I take it out. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to put it in my pile of don't ever lose this jumper jumpers. No. Here's what I do with it. I put it in sideways. Sideways does nothing. That says save this jumper, I'll use it later if I need it. Okay? So if you ever open one up and you look at the back and it's in there sideways, it's saying I'm doing nothing. I'm just storage. Because what the jumpers are doing is it's connecting this circuit or connecting this circuit. Okay? So if you go like this, you're not connecting any circuits. It's doing nothing. Okay? So sideways jumpers mean I'm just holding you there. That's storage. Okay? So when we get to the final exam and your hard drive doesn't work, and you've got an IDE hard drive, because it will be in our IDE hard drive, because they're harder. So why would I give you a SATA one? Okay? So I'm going to give you one of these painted drives, and the first thing I do is I look in BIOS, and is it working? And if it's not, I got to look at my jumpers, okay? And I have to read the diagram. What if there's no diagram? What the heck do I do? I have to Google it. That's my only choice. Now, I'm not that mean. On your final exam, now this computer's going to be open. You're going to be able to Google stuff if you want to. Anything you want to on your final exam, it's open to Google. Okay? In fact, you guys are small enough class, probably just have a laptop out. Okay? Corey will be here with a laptop here. You'll be there with a laptop there. Okay? So if it's not on there, but it is on here, where is it, Corey? Is it on the diagram right there? He's looked forever. No! This one's actually on the bottom. It says right here on the bottom. It says... Oh wait, is this the drive I handed you?
Yeah. It says no stated master slave.
I thought that's because that's a SATA drive. There is no master slave on a SATA drive. I meant to hand you this one. There's no diagram on the top of this one. It's underneath, and it says CS, slave, and master right there on that one.
I know the bathroom before the tornado drill.
What tornado drill?
At 950.
What?
Did a tornado drill all across Ohio. I promise you this.
I have class to do. We can't get behind anymore. Okay, no. Okay, we'll make the bathroom. We'll go to the boys' locker room. No, that won't work. Okay, so you have to look underneath or on top, line it up, master, slave, whatever. And the last thing is, some Western Digital drives say on the top, none of these do, but it says single, no jumper. Okay? In which case, it's the master, no jumper. Now again, you can't have two masters, you can't have two slaves. Sometimes you have to put the jumpers though, and here's why. Like you normally say, I'll always just use cable select and stick it on the end of the cable and I'm good, right? This computer right here only has one IDE connector. And we have the CD-ROM here and the hard drive's right behind here. And we can't use cable select or the CD-ROM would be master. So we have to set that as master and that as slave, which is probably why that CD-ROM is set as master right there. Okay, so that's jumpers. Question on jumpers. You have to read the diagram. You have to set the jumpers right. If the jumpers aren't set right, it will not work. Okay? Okay, just a picture. If you've got two, make sure you've got the hard drive on the primary and the CD-ROM on the secondary channel. Okay? I already kind of talked about it. PATA speeds went 33, 66, 100, 133, and SATA started out at 150, 300, 600, and you can see SATA in all cases are faster than the fastest PATA drive. Okay? We're going to talk more about speed next class when we talk about solid state drives and some of the seek time stuff. Okay, so I'm going to let me see where I am on the. Okay, yeah, I'm going to talk about how hard drives work, and then we're going to come back to speeds, and not just these, because there are different speeds to think about. Okay, there's transfer speed, how fast the data gets to the motherboard, and there's seek speed, which is how fast the drive finds the data.
Teacher part interruption. Just a reminder, in a few moments we're going to do our statewide tornado drill. If you've not yet done so, please review all of the expectations.